right, Donnie, we're about here. It's episode number 1. We've been talking about this and waiting for this for, I don't know, years now, man. It's been awesome. I'm so psyched to really get this going. So this guy's been a friend of mine for over a decade. We've been talking business strategy, marketing, and basically we built our business in parallel with one another. I mean, he has been side by side with me for the better part of the past decade. And this guy is, very similar in a sense that he's just got the need for speed, so much so that he named his son Maverick. My friend, my buddy, my consigliere, your mortgage professional for life, MP4L, Donnie Anfuso.
Thanks for having me here, Don Corleone. I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you for having me. Very cool. And I'm very happy to be number 1.
Yeah, dude. Business Unchained. This is the launch.
Very cool. Years in the making.
Very much years in the making. So, we put this podcast together with the intention that, most business owners, they have these like ball and chains attached to them. It's whether it's, belief systems that they have in place, or it's they don't have the right employees in place. They just feel like they're chained to their business and they're trying to figure out ways to unchain themselves to create that self-managed business. I know a lot of that is the stuff that we've been talking about for years. I know we've both made adjustments here, to make our lives better, to really coincide with our belief system. And, you've got an interesting story. I love what you've been doing. And I don't want to take for granted what I know because we've known each other for so long. I want the audience to get a little feel of Donnie Anfuso, the energy that's behind the name, and what you've accomplished over the past decade that I think is pretty impressive. And your shoes just tell the story.
Oh, thank you, man. These are cool, huh? Got to give a shout out to Big Jordan for bringing these to our attention, right?
I think they might be the most comfortable shoes I've ever put on.
They certainly are. But you cannot walk on tile floor with these shoes because you will kill yourself. I almost did earlier today here, which would have been a nice score for me, but I'm still here and I'm okay.
So, dude, like I said, I love you. I love your journey. I love what you're doing. Let's kind of take a step back and let's tell the story of how the hell did you get here? Where did you start? And I mean, I know people don't wake up in the morning and say, all right, for the rest of my life, I think, I want to do this. There's always a way that somebody got in and tell the story, baby. Tell the tale.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely to wake up one day and say, oh, I want to be a mortgage guy or a mortgage banker. That was not the story. I was a terrible student growing up. I wasn't motivated by school. I didn't pay attention in class. I just didn't like it at all. I was a senior in high school and I was in jeopardy of not being able to graduate with my class. And
which is so funny because like you right now, you're so focused. Yeah. And the research that you do and just the general knowledge that you like kind of stay up to speed with, that's always funny to hear.
Because I think we mature. I was a very immature kid. I matured later on in life. I think it's all about just growing up a little bit. I still like to have fun, and I look at myself as a big kid too, but it wasn't there for me. It was more fun to rebel back then.
Was it like you're a product of your environment, or why do you think that you were like that?
When I was younger, I think it was more just wanting attention and not realizing the attention I was getting was not the right attention that you were looking for.
But we're going to psychoanalyze this right now.
Oh, shit, here we go. I'm sitting on the couch with my therapist today. Yeah, I mean, listen, I had to graduate. I didn't want to be embarrassed, right? I didn't deserve to. I didn't have the grades where I didn't put in the time or anything. And there was a class that you could take at my high school where you work half the day and the other half of the day is in school taking a regular class.
It's like a work study
program. Exactly. My initial plan was, as you know, my family own a family restaurant, and I was going to go into the restaurant business.
Come on, give a shout out to the family business.
Aldi La Restaurant, East Rutherford. We started in Montclair back in the day. It was my dad's passion.
Dominic.
Yep, Dominic. He had a great thing going there, man. It was a lot of fun to work there. You learn a lot about people, which has helped me in my business now, and how to deal with people. Customer service is very difficult.
I don't want to get too much into your dad, but we talk about somebody who is just they bought themselves a job just chained to their business. I mean, he loves what he does and he's so good at what he does, but man, that thing can't run without him being there.
It's generational. It's just how they see it and how they do it. And it's a great thing to watch as a son, your father as well. It's a great thing to watch because you learn what works and what doesn't work and how to make it better. Even though they're stubborn in their own way, I think we've taken what our fathers have done and we've just made it more efficient and make it work better for us to have that healthy life and balance that most people are always looking for.
We didn't always have that. I mean, we worked ourselves to getting there, but
sure. But working 80 hours a week was never the goal. We never looked at it and says, listen, it's a badge of honor because I'm working on the weekends and doing crazy hours. I know for myself, I always said to myself, how do I get the most out of my time? What I want to do is I want to get the maximum amount done, but I also want to enjoy it. What good is money and success if you have no time to enjoy it? It's a waste. I'm not a collector. I want to enjoy my time here. And I think our parents, especially my father, even though he loves what he does, I don't think he got the most out of it.
We left off with your dad owning his own business, you going into this work study program, and you were going to work for him. And I'm going to kick it back over to you.
Yeah, so the plan was to work for dad. And 2 weeks into the class, the teacher comes to me. She's like, "I'm sorry, you can't work for family." And I'm like, "Well, I don't understand." She's like, "We have a nepotism rule." At that time,
Oh, so your teacher didn't know your dad. That's actually reverse nepotism.
That's exactly correct.
Treat my kid worse than everyone else.
I tried to make that point, but to no avail. And so, with my wonderful attitude at the time, I think my exact words were to her, "Well, then find me a job. I'm not working at Chuck E. Cheese and I'm not delivering pizzas." So, within a week, she comes back to me and she's like, "Listen, a young lady worked for this mortgage company in Whippany, New Jersey last year. She basically answered the phone, did some clerical stuff. You interested?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And that's where it all started. Not intentional at all. I showed up for my interview. I got the job. I ended up spending about 15 years combined with that one company. I was hired to answer the phones, run credit reports, and do like little things. I was a gopher. Get me lunch. I took the guys' cars to get washed and things like that. But I was surrounded by a group of men and women that were young and successful. They had fancy cars, they wear good clothes, they were successful, and it motivated me. I was like, I like this. I want to do this.
The glitz and the glamour.
The glitz and glamour. Yeah, I was 17 years old. It was awesome. My friends were going off to college, and this was like my thing. And I was like, hey, I could do something here. And then a little bit of luck comes into play as well, being at the right place at the right time and with the right people, right? They didn't care about my age. They didn't care about the acne on my face. Basically, it came down to if I could show that I can get the job done, it didn't matter. They let me do it. I think by 26, I was the executive vice president of the company. I was second in charge of about 100 different employees, grown ass adults. I was in charge. I put together systems that made it flow. I put together systems that created our branch platform.
See, that's the Donnie that I know, not the guy who says, I wasn't very good in high school. It's the guy who comes in and just, kicks ass and takes names later.
Yeah. You know what? I think at first the motivation was like proving everybody wrong that I was something special, but I have an addiction to progress and systems. So it motivated me. And when there's something that I love and it motivates me, it's not work anymore. And it just comes second nature. I learned a lot of the right things to do. And I saw a lot of things that you shouldn't be doing. And what I did was I kept on taking those experiences to get me to where I am today.
So it's funny you said you wanted to prove everybody wrong. It's interesting to hear how many business owners that I speak to that one of their driving motivations, even mine, was to prove everybody that I could do it. That was the underlying. It was I had to do it. And it was that competitive need. Do you still have that?
No, not anymore. And hindsight being 2020, I think you probably feel the same, but I think it was a waste.
I mean, that's a journey in itself to go from the need to please everybody and the need to get approval and the need to be the best and that competitive edge of just more about what you're proving than the journey itself, to be able to come to a level of maturity and complacency to say, hey, listen, I've arrived.
Yep. And it doesn't happen overnight either. It takes a long time to get there.
Was there anything specific that you remember or recall being one of the driving forces that got you away from that mentality?
I think it's a lot of like what you just said. It's when you finally realize you've arrived. I think when you gain enough confidence in what you do and how you do it, that's when it all stops. And you stop caring what other people think and you just focus on, moving forward and making things better and improving on what you've done already. It just happened recently. I'm 44 now, maybe right around 42 years old did I really get to that point when I truly stopped caring so much. And I just realized like, hey, listen, I'm good at what I do. I understand what I'm doing and I'm smarter than most of the people out there who do what I do.
Can you go back to something specific? Like, was there an event that you said, you know what, ever since then, it was that really kind of pushed me over the edge?
I wouldn't say it was an event. I would say it just experience doing different things. I had tried working in different capacities in my business and things like that. I've had a chance to talk to a lot of professionals in my business. And when listening to them and seeing what they brought to the table, I'm like, wow, these are things that they're talking about right now that they consider to be like groundbreaking. I was thinking about these things 10 years ago. I'm not saying that to say I'm smarter or better than anybody else. I just tend to always, there's a great Bobby Kennedy saying where he's like, some people see things as they are and say why. I dream things that never were and say why not. That's how it always was for me. I was like, how can we make this better? How can we do something different when maybe the technology wasn't there to have it done. Like, I always like to think forward like that. And here we are, what, 10, 15 years later, and these guys are talking about this stuff like it's new and amazing and this breakthrough technology. It's like, no, it's not. That we could have done that 10 years ago.
Well, I think that's the energy that we gravitated to with one another, was the fact that we just look for ways to disrupt the norm. It was how do we shake things up to the point where we're just different, not because we're telling people we're different, because we actually are different. We do things, we think about things differently, we do things differently. What are some of the key things that you've worked on in your career over the past 10 years that you feel like you've created that disruption that other business owners can say, yeah, you know what? That's something I could translate maybe into my business or into my thought process. Are there any, I don't know if
It's kind of like what we always talk about, building processes and things like that, right? I didn't focus so much on goal setting. And you set goals and you constantly get disappointed. And then finally you hit the goal, but you had no processes to get to that particular goal. And you fall off the wagon, right? Just like dieting and things like that. It just really came down to always trying to reinvent the wheel to create something scalable that competes with like your bigger competitors. How, as a small company, can we provide the same level of service as the big guys are doing out there, but also with that white glove service that we know is so important to our business, right? And doing what's best for the client. People talk about it all the time. The consumer experience is really the most important thing ever. If your consumers have a great experience, you end up not having to sell and remarket yourself. They become your best salespeople, and they're free. And that's what it was. And you can't fake that either.
no.
You can't. You either got it or you don't have it.
I think we skipped a big portion of this, which is you run your own practice now, and that's something that you've developed because you said, you have to really fight against and compete against the bigger institutions that have a lot of these processes in place. But we also talk about the rigidity of those processes and how your looseness of the processes kind of redefine how you do business. But there's a how you got there story. And we left off with you being 26 and VP and managing most adults. When did that mind shift change for you where you were like, you know what? I'm no longer part of the big business cog. I'm going to go off and do my Donnie thing.
Yeah, it's a great question. It came down to the markets. We had a housing crash, right? Changed the mortgage business forever. I wasn't a salesperson. I was always an employee. You had that cushy paycheck, and I was running a business with partners, right? And when the housing crash happened, it changed everything. And those roles didn't exist anymore. We were simplifying and condensing everything, and there was no money for that. So I had to go into sales. I was forced into it. It was either that or find another avenue to make a living and earn. So I took all that I had learned and I jumped into sales head first. Housing crash was over. We just came into an environment where interest rates have come down. So it presented an opportunity for me to get up and running a lot quicker than it normally would take. And the first thing I did was like sales 101, man. I pulled out the black book and I called everybody I knew and I told them what I was doing. And it just happened to be the right time where, listen, people that own homes, rates are low, let's refinance them. And it helped get the word out. This is what I was doing.
Was there a dark period at that point where things got a little rough for you, or was it pretty much a good transition from you going from the corporate side to the sales side? Did you just have a perfect ride of the wave, or were there any frictions in those
I
moments?
did. I had a perfect ride with the wave. The friction happened way before that. When I left that original company, I tried to open up my own company with partner, and I learned a lot about running a business and how important it is to focus on systems and having set roles and compartmentalizing the business. But that transition into sales was luckily a good one, and timing had a lot to do with it. But you have to capitalize on everything, right? You can't sit back for 1 second and just take it for granted. I went balls to the wall, man. My foot was on the pedal, and I was going at 100 miles an hour.
What does balls to the wall mean to you? What did paint us a picture in terms of what that really meant?
It's really all stop, no go, don't stop. I mean, you don't take a second to yourself. I knew the window was just short window. So every possible second I had, I was there and I was promoting myself and making phone calls and just trying to build up that pipeline. There's a great story as when I went to the first place that I had went to when I got into sales. I left the broker world and went to the banker world. I wanted to try it. And I went there and I was nervous. From having that cushy paycheck to going 100% commission, it's a scary thing. And not everyone's made for that either. So we negotiated a deal where they actually gave me a draw and a salary to come in the door that they normally wouldn't have done. But with my experience, they felt comfortable in doing it. It was funny. 15 days into it, my phone was ringing so much. I went back to the owners. I was like, listen, keep the draw. I want my full commission now. I was like, I don't need this money anymore. And that's where it just all started. And it just started to it just started to roll down a hill, and that big snowball just created itself. And then I met a good friend of mine, Mike Verdicchio from Homeland Lending, someone who I had prospected to come on board and recruit as a branch of my company originally. And he was a stand-up guy, and that's why I went to work for Mike. And I'd spent most of the past 15 years with Mike as a broker in Homeland Lending.
That's some of the ups and downs that we see in businesses. Is it's a lot of luck, it's a lot of timing. I always say it's not what you know, it's kind of who you know and the people that you surround yourself with. And that opportunity presented itself at the right time, which sounds like if you would have stuck the path, where do you think you would have been? I mean, what were some of the things that you've learned over that period of time that you find are just the most valuable aspects that you carry forward?
I think for everybody, it's a little bit different. For me, control was really important. To a fault at one point in time, but I was very careful, and there was reasons why I went there. I can control my branding. I can control the process. Going to a big name company would limit me. You're stuck with how they do things. And in my industry, just like a lot of industries, we are so far behind the curve when it comes to technology and things like that. And having control was a big part of my success. People got a different experience when working with me versus your average mortgage bank or bank that you did a deal with.
So I always say it's really easy to talk about successes, but it's really hard to talk about successes without failure and the pivot points that really led you to some of the, let's repeat the word successes again, right? I mean, you get some luck, you ride a wave, but what are some of the things that you picked up along the way that were maybe some tough lessons that helped you to craft or perfect your
Oh my
craft?
God, countless. I mean, countless failures along the way. So many. I mean, that's the roadmap to success is failures and learning from those types of things.
Top three, then.
Money management was a big one, especially with marketing, right? Marketing has changed, and it changes so much as well. You can't pay enough money to get your name out there and market yourself. You have to have something special, right? You have to have something that's unique, and it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time to do it. We're still doing it, still a work in process. I hired a marketing company. I was a one-man show. We're spending $8,000 a month. A one-man show companies don't even spend that kind of money to help me get SEO and get my name out there and pay per clicks, and got nothing from it. It was an $86,000 complete bust, right? Money management and understanding that there's no quick fix to anything.
Why was that a bust?
What a lot of these marketing companies don't understand, they don't take the time to really understand the business. We're in service related business. We're not selling watches. We're not selling cars. We're not selling clothes and sneakers. It's very easy. It's easier, I should say, to market a product that you're selling. We're selling service, right? They don't understand that. And the amount of time and effort and money it would cost to compete with the big guys on that scale just makes no sense. A great lesson for a lot of people out there that are starting a business and they want to get into marketing and promoting themselves. When you're talking to these marketing companies and these gurus that say that they could do this and they could do that for you, you can't focus so much on that sticker price. You have to focus on how much time are you giving me for what we're paying. $8,000 a month allotted me X amount of time by their staff on a monthly basis, right? It didn't guarantee me or assure me I was going to get results. The amount of hours that they could put in at that price wasn't sufficient to hit the goals required to get my return on my investment.
Well, I think the other interesting thing about marketing, and we're just kind of, go off on a little bit of a tangent, because I think that a lot of people try different marketing tactics to grow their business. And, really marketing, it's just a social experiment. You and I could be running similar businesses. You could run a marketing program. I can mimic that marketing program, and maybe because of timing or the way that I speak or something may just have the results be completely different than what you see.
Yep.
I think we did it at the same time if we're thinking about the same marketing endeavor. And really for me, it was also, you can't expect somebody to just take the baton and run with it, especially when you're trying to market yourself and not put the time, energy, and effort on your part. And for me, and I know this was less of an issue for you than it was for me. For me, I just found myself it's starts and stops and stopping and starting because of the lack of time that I had to put toward it, the bandwidth that I had that was limited.
And we learned a big lesson from that. You can't rely on other people to do it. So what we had to do is we had to build systems and make our businesses more efficient so they could run ourselves, so we could focus more on the marketing side of it. Nobody else could be your voice but you.
Right. And, we've always talked about the amount of hats that you had to wear and I had to wear starting off. And I guess what are some of the key moments when you were, peeling off the hats that you were just, yeah, I guess I had higher anxiety over relinquishing? How did you start to strip them away? What were some of the things that were going on internally for you? Because most people, they talk about control, right? Oh, I got to lose control. Nobody can do it better than I can. Oh, nobody knows the process, or they don't have the same relationships. Where did you find the hardest part to be in your business that you had to delegate off and find somebody to take that task?
You know me better than anybody else. I should say I'm a recovering control freak. Delegating is so important. I had this thing in my head that nobody else could talk to my clients. Nobody else could see anybody else's name. It's got to be me, 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 me. But you can't be in 1,000 places at the same time. You have to do it. And I learned by failure. I capped out. I literally like hit an apex where I couldn't do any more, no matter how much time I put in there. And you're forced to do it. And talking with other business owners, people like you and I, and we had those little powwows that we always would have. Little by little, I started giving pieces away slowly here and there. I wish if I could go back, I would have done it a lot faster, a lot quicker. It took me some time. End result is now I'm recovered. I am not an addict anymore of control. I've learned that my time could be better well spent doing the heavy lifting, and I could have other people do the other things.
So if you were going to go back to your 30-year-old self, is that the one major piece of advice, or is there something else that lies into the lessons that you've learned that you would go back in time to pass along?
That's an important one, but one that always sticks with me, it's always in my head, is never taking no for an answer. Don't listen to other people saying something can't be done. If there's a will, there's a way. It can happen. Timing comes in as well. It's super important. You can't have an iPhone without the internet, right? It doesn't do anything for you, right? The Beatles may not be the Beatles today. The Beatles were the Beatles back then. Little things like that. Timing has a lot to do with it. But no, don't take no for an answer. If you see something that you think can be improved on, keep on working at it. You may not get to that final goal, but there's progress along the way, and something always comes of it. Constantly making yourself smarter. I hate it when my team comes to me and they bring me like problems constantly. I don't want to hear about the problem. How are we going to fix it? I don't even care if it's the wrong answer. Let's start spitballing ideas. I can't stand just hearing about problems.
Yeah, getting caught up on a problem is one thing. It's really the getting caught up on the solution. Like, come to me with a solution. Don't come with me with a problem.
It's good to have a sounding board, right? You need people around you. You should never be the smartest person in the room. If you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? Don't be scared to be wrong. Don't be scared to ask questions, and don't be scared to listen rather than talking all the time. I think that's one that you and I, we were having a conversation. You said something like that. I always felt like I always had to talk and get things out. And then actually with Sandler training too, which was awesome, right? They talk about just sit back and listen. And you know what? You're not selling anymore. You just let the client or you let the person that you're speaking to speak. And sometimes they answer their own question for themselves.
Yeah, I always say be interested, not interesting, right?
Absolutely.
You ever talk to somebody and it never happened between you and I, because you and I were always yipping yapping back and forth.
Yeah, we riff.
But you ever talk to somebody where they just do 99% of the talking, and at the end of the conversation they go, "Oh my God, I love talking to you. This was the greatest conversation. I feel like we're best friends now." And you kind of say to yourself, I don't remember saying too much, but I'm glad you liked the conversation.
And
This
you
was
say, I
great."
was that guy at one point, right? I did that. Holy shit. How annoying would that have been? I'm sorry to anybody who had to go through that and listen to me all those times. Yeah, you're so much more productive when you listen.
We also talk a lot about just life in general. And I think, we more than just build our business in parallel. I think a lot of the collaborating that we do goes well beyond the definition of business. And one of the things that I found myself doing in and taking some advice on is putting a routine together. I've never been a routine guy, but I have my morning routine. I wake up, I drink my hydrogen water. Yes, I've done a video before if you guys want to make fun of me again. But I do my stretches. I make sure I open up my hips. I get myself feeling a little bit limber. I then go, I have my cup of coffee. I do some breathing exercise. I jump in the shower and I feel like I'm refreshed and ready to go. I hit my journal. I write the top 3 things I need to do for the day and a little bit of positive affirmation. And mindset is pure, clear, ready to go. And I know how I need to tackle the day.
You're very good at that.
What are some of the things that you do? Do you have any sort of routines or things that you you hit upon on a daily basis?
It's funny, we're always riffing with one another, and like you know, I rip things off you all the time. I don't have that huge routine. My routine is pretty simple, where I get up in the morning, I take my shower, I grab my coffee, I get in the car. My car ride to work is my solace space, right? I throw on a podcast, have a book read to me while I'm driving the car, and that's where I do my best thinking. My phone is off, nobody's really bothering me. It just gets me into that mindset. And then as soon as I walk through that door, I think we used the analogy the other day. It's like Stallone and Over the Top, man. I turn the hat backwards and it's on. Next thing you know, I look at my watch. It's 6 o'clock and the day's over, man.
So you get right into your flow.
I do. And I can't be interrupted. If my flow is interrupted, it throws me off for the whole day. So I get in there, I close my door, and I'm just going at it. I try not to let anything, take me off my game, because I'm easily distracted.
So it sounds like that's your routine.
That is my routine.
That's your routine to getting into your flow, because they always say, like, once you hit your flow, you've got to stay in flow. And once you break flow, it's hard to get back into flow.
It's very, and it changes too. I mean, I just became a dad. My son is 11 months old, right? It was so different before he was born. And I just got married 5 years ago. I was 39 years old when I got married. It's changed so much in a short period of time. It was different back then. If you asked me before I got married, I was up early in the morning. I was at the gym, got back, got showered. I was out there and I was networking and meeting people and working. It was different. But now I have responsibilities. So you have to change it up all the time. And I think that's where most people struggle, especially business owners. Change. You can't go into any of this thinking that, listen, I got my routine. This is just going to work forever. You constantly have to evolve. You constantly have to change. If you are adverse to change, you're dead. You're dead. It's pure misery.
Yeah, you can't be afraid to change. That's for sure. Because if you're not changing, guess what? Everything around you is changing, and you're staying the same. And to your point,
yeah, we're like athletes. Athletes aren't the only people that at a certain point in time, they no longer could play baseball, play hockey, play football. Same thing. You don't look the same. You don't have the same earning potential, but doesn't mean it's impossible to keep it going. You just have to have a plan for it.
In the sense of change, if you were to close your eyes and imagine yourself 10 years from now, what would be the aspect of your life that you'd be most curious about in 10 years?
I'm curious to see where this next step is, in business, professionally, and personally wise. I mean, we're doing some things together now. I just want to see where this all takes us, with as far as how I can bring the mortgage business together with the advisory type business and working with you guys and building a bigger network. I think once you get to a point like we talked about earlier, where you have a lot of confidence and you stop caring what people think, and people start looking at you as someone that they trust for advice and things like that, I think it opens up a lot of doors. So I'm very curious to see what happens. My plan for the future is really just putting myself out there a lot more and doing things I hadn't been doing for a long time. I'm in a completely different place where I think I bring a lot more to the table. So I want to shake as many hands as possible, meet as many people as possible, and see what we can do. The end goal is to just constantly be progressing and loving what I do every day. When it becomes actual work, I want to be done. And I hope that never happens. I really do. I hope it never happens.
Well, right now it doesn't feel like work, so
it doesn't. You have your good days, you have your bad days. You hear people say all the time, you're like, that's bullshit. But no, it doesn't feel like work.
We've got this venture. You've got your business. You're rocking and rolling life. 2-year-old Mav coming along.
1-year-old Mav.
I know, but he'll be coming around to 2-year-old Mav.
Yep.
And how do you keep yourself engaged in work, life, play with Mav, and also staying healthy and living a healthy lifestyle? What are some of the things that you do to just for yourself to make sure you're managing your stress, you're balancing your life out?
You have to make it a priority, and you have to think about it. I've had this conversation at night sometime when I'm sitting on the chair and I'm putting him to sleep. I'm 44. By the time Mav is 20 years old, I'm going to be 64 years old. I'm going to be an older dad. All right. Time isn't on your side. You can't buy more time. But I owe it to myself to do everything I can to make sure, as long as I'm here, I'm as healthy as possible for myself and for him as well. I don't want to be a burden on him. So you have to realize, like, your investment in yourself, your mind, and your body is number one. For years, I always took care of my body. I was always in the gym. I always ate right. And then as soon as like I got married, and as soon as the first guy
You didn't
came around,
believe me when I told you.
no, dude, how was the guy like? It's not gonna be me. It's not gonna be me. And I'm
You
hearing it
had
from
me taking
everybody.
those micronutrient tests and
Yes.
the vitamins,
Yep.
and you were going to the gym, and I'm going to the gym. See you later. And I'm like, I gotta go home. I gotta go coach, or I've gotta
And I
go,
would sit there
get
and
to the
judge,
babies.
and I
Or
judged people for
oh,
it. I was
you
like,
judged the hell
you
out
don't
of me,
have an
dude.
hour a day for yourself. Now I get it, but you know what? You have to make the time. You have to figure out. You have to make sacrifices. You got to start. I'm not used to saying no. You know, when somebody's like, "Oh, meet me here," or "Let's do this," like, yes, yes, yes. You have to kind of you have to prioritize and do it.
You have to.
People talk about it all the time, and it looks good to be in good shape and stuff like that. But I felt so good. Looking one is important, but I felt so good. I was more efficient that way. I was better for myself. I was better for my customers. I was better for my family and everybody else. It's a win-win.
But that's also one of the chains that business owners carry around, is that constant need to feel like they always have to say yes. I'd love to say that I'm fully unchained, and I find myself still at moments, even being at the point where I do say no most of the times, feeling like, you know what, I probably should just say yes. I mean, I'm waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to hit my gym time because, like you said, you have to make sacrifices. I go to bed a little bit
I'm
earlier.
sure you don't want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I sure as hell don't want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the
Some days
morning.
I love it. Some days I absolutely love it. And some days it's just harder.
Yep.
But, doing the easy thing doesn't get you to where you want to be. It's always doing the harder thing.
It's the funny thing is just getting yourself to do it. But once you do it, you're in the groove and it feels so freaking good.
I know, right?
I'm in that rut right now where I'm just not doing it. I got a lot of things going on, but you can't make excuses. You definitely got to do it. It's one of the most important things you can do. I mean, this is the best investment. When this is in tip top shape, I mean, you are unstoppable.
Dude, you know about my shoulder, right? So I've been going for that soft wave therapy.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, listen, you're going to do the soft wave therapy, but you can't take any anti-inflammatories because you need to let your body do the healing. And I really don't want to see you aggravated. So just don't do anything you're going to hurt your shoulder. So I've basically taken the past couple of weeks off the gym. And
Well,
I
I just
felt
saw you playing
terrible.
ping pong out there.
I felt terrible. I was like, you know what? The hell with it. I'm going to go to the gym because my whole body hurts. And I felt so much better. I was just a little bit aware about my shoulder. I didn't do anything too crazy, but I felt so much better.
Yeah, you have to do it.
It's that mind-body alignment also.
100%. What we put in is what you get out.
So here, I love to reserve this for the last question because I have taken a lot of your time and I do appreciate it. I love to borrow from other people.
Mhm.
And this is something that I loved when I heard it. And I love to hear your answer on this. Let's say you were taken away from this earth, all of your earthly belongings, the imprint you've left here, and the only thing you had were three things that you could leave behind. Could be material, it could be thoughts of wisdom, it could be philosophy. Three things that you could leave behind, whether it's for Mav, it's for mankind, or whatever your purpose is for leaving it behind. What would those three things be?
Number one, and just having Mav in the back of my head, is don't waste any of your time worrying about what other people think. If we could adhere to that's golden advice right there.
Well, if we dig into the psychology of that, that's a whole nother hour.
Physical things. It's funny. It seems materialistic, but my whole life, it was funny when we met. We got into watches together, right? And I always wanted this one particular watch, and I finally got it. I want that watch I want to give it to Mav. I want Mav to have it forever. I want him to look down at that watch and always remember Daddy. Remember how hard he worked for it. I want him to have it. I want his kids to have it. So I want to leave that behind as sort of like a symbol of like, that's what when I got that at that point in time, as stupid as it sounds, it felt like I made it. When I got it, it's not really a true symbol of making it, but it did. At one point, it meant that much to me, and it's something you can leave behind. That's just like an heirloom, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, but you say it sounds silly, but it really is whatever means something to you to help you to attain your goal. And we all need something.
Yeah.
All need something to help us keep that drive moving forward. And it could be anything. And for you, it was that. And
yeah, it's just looking down at it, and it would make me so happy, like see him watch it and care for it. I had a friend that I worked with at a previous company. His dad had passed, and he left him a watch, and it just the pride and the smile on his face when he wore it. It was like, wow, something like that.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it was very cool, and I'd love to pass that on to him as well.
Any other parting words of wisdom you want to leave our listeners with today?
No, man, I just want to say I'm so proud of you. I think you've done such a great job doing what you're doing. This is really awesome. It's going to get better and better and better as time goes by. Thank you for having me here
Love you, buddy.
as your guest. I love you too. And listen, to anybody out there, that you're starting your business, don't look too far ahead. Set small little goals that are attainable along the way, so you don't get yourself into a rut. Progress is king. Just keep moving forward and don't take no for an answer. And listen, things will come your way.
I love that advice. It's a perfect way to wrap it up. And appreciate everybody listening to Business Unchained. We're going to get this going every other week.
Awesome, dude. Thank you.
We'll wrap it up.